Discover the incredible moment when a black maid's daughter revealed hope to a billionaire's hidden despair. Maya Johnson had always felt like an understudy in a world scripted for someone else. In her neighborhood in Atlanta, the sound of her mother's mop sweeping the rich floors echoed through her dreams. But their dreams were not supposed to be intertwined. She was just a girl, the daughter of a maid, and the classroom she navigated each day hardly noticed her. The lessons droned on while she transformed fleeting moments into lines of code within the screens left behind by her mother's wealthy employer. Each click was a shout she wished could pierce the boundaries of her quiet world. When David Kingsley's daughter Sophia cast a curious eye on her, Maya felt an unseen spark. It wasn't just pity, it was recognition. As they grew closer, Maya turned from the shadows, enveloped by a burgeoning confidence as they embarked on a project for a prestigious science competition, an opportunity that felt both exhilarating and suffocating. The project meant everything, and with every line of code she wrote under Sophia's guidance, she inched ever closer to an unfamiliar dream. But beneath the surface excitement lay a dark anomaly that clawed at her chest. The realization struck her like cold rain. The very foundation of her hope could be yanked out from under her. Her mother's employer, the creator of a world where Maya yearned to belong, was entangled in a scheme that could jeopardize her mother's job. The weight of that truth snaked around Maya's throat, silencing the cheer of every anticipated triumph. How could she proceed, knowing that success for her meant a potential chain reaction of ruin for her family? Caught between two worlds, her heart raced with the opposing forces of ambition and loyalty. The anxiety coiled tighter with each passing moment. Would exposing the truth only end in her isolation at a time when, for the first time, acceptance felt attainable? Endless questions spiraled through her mind. If she spoke up, would she lose Sophia, her blossoming friendship shattering along with the aspirations that had sparked to life? Yet each bite of code she crafted was a reminder of the precariousness of her position. No one ever wrote about the woman behind the curtain, only the show that followed. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Maya stood at the edge of the presentation hall, her pulse drumming a frantic rhythm. The project poster loomed before her like a precipice. The audience's eyes were heavy as they trained on her in an expectation that felt impossibly distant. She could practically hear the whispers questioning her worth. Her gaze flickered to Sophia, who smiled encouragingly, yet Maya's mind was a battlefield. Details of the scheme, coupled with the horror of potential fallout, pulsed through her. Every moment she hesitated rooted her deeper into despair. She felt small and insignificant, a whisper fighting against a clamor of wealth and influence. The truth threatened to upriver her future. Would she unveil the shards of deception? Or would she let her dreams spin into shadows, all to keep the fragile peace at home? With each word she prepared to articulate, a symphony of hope and dread clashed within her. The moment had come, the pause before the plunge. One decision could solidify her fate forever. Maya inhaled deeply, forcing herself to focus on the unwavering gaze of Sophia, a beacon of belief amidst a storm of doubt. Was this her moment of truth, or merely an illusion? The anticipated presentation loomed before her like a chasm, inviting her with tantalizing yet suffocating urges. She could sense all the eyes pinned to her, and with them the weight of expectations. Not just from her peers, but from a lifetime of striving to be recognized, not just as a maid's daughter, but as someone deserving of success in her own right. With a trembling hand, she clutched the poster adorned with their collective work. Every line of code represented a piece of her soul, forged in a fire of ambition and fear. She glanced at the intricate designs and the buzzing energy of creativity that thrummed behind the scenes. Could the brilliance of this project overshadow the darkness that threatened her family's stability? The moment crystallized. She could either relay every detail of their endeavor, unveiling the truth behind its brilliance, or allow fear to silence her voice, ceding to the invisible hand that threatened her mother's livelihood. The thought of her mother's tired eyes, filled with unvoiced sacrifices, propelled her. What kind of daughter would she be if she let those sacrifices fade into nothing? "Thank you all for being here," she stammered, each word a pebble rippling across the glassy surface of her anxious heart. "Today, I want to talk about something that goes beyond the technical aspects of our project. I want to talk about truth." A muted gasp penetrated the hall. She felt the collective breath of her peers suspending the moment. This was it, the inflection point, her chance to confront not only what was at stake for her family, but also the power that resided within her. She paused, scanning the audience. Would anyone understand the weight of her truth? "Our project explores a new software that promotes transparency in business practices," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "But transparency means nothing if we hide behind fears. This journey isn't just about an award. It's about recognizing those who labor to make these dreams possible, but often remain unseen." As her words poured forth, certainty overcame her fear. The hidden despair didn't just belong to the powerful. It echoed in the lives of those like her mother, diligently cleaning in the background. The truth was not only what she could expose, but what she could illuminate, a flickering beacon for others trapped in the shadows. However, as she shared, her thoughts often flicked back to the scheme that bound her mother's employer. Each revelation felt like a betrayal weighing heavily on her heart. What if her honesty led to their ruin? Would Sophia understand the delicate balance they teetered upon, or would it present an insurmountable chasm between them? After her presentation, as applause enveloped her, she found Sophia's eyes sparkling with pride, yet clouded with concern. The exhilaration of the moment was overshadowed by uncertainty. Despite the weight of her revelation, had she forfeited the fragile bond they built? As accolades filled the air, Maya could almost feel the walls closing in, pressing against her as her destiny hung delicately in the balance. And then it happened. David Kingsley strode toward her, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Maya, can we speak for a moment?" The world around her faded. She hesitated, but then nodded, heart pounding with questions. What would he make of her truths, and was this the beginning of understanding or the end of protection? Each step felt heavy as she approached him, the stakes of their conversation poised to redefine everything. Would he listen, or would this be the moment where everything unraveled? What lay ahead could either open vast paths or lead to an irrevocable descent. Maya's breath caught in her throat as David's presence loomed closer, the atmosphere thickening with each step. His reputation preceded him, and she couldn't shake the butterflies of uncertainty fluttering in her stomach. What did he want? The success of her presentation clawed at her confidence, while dread whispered its sinister possibilities. "Nice work on the presentation," David began, his tone surprisingly warm. "You have a natural gift for conveying your passion. That was refreshing." The sincerity in his voice quelled the storm within her, if only for a moment. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steadying as she silently willed herself to compose. "I believe in what we created." But as she said it, doubt coiled tightly around her heart. Did she genuinely believe, or was this just another layer of defense against the turmoil she faced at home? David gestured to a quieter section of the hallway.
Can we talk privately? I'd like to understand the inspiration behind your approach. The thrill of being singled out by someone like him ignited a flicker of exhilaration, but the potential consequences of her honesty loomed above her like a dark cloud. As they settled into a corner away from prying ears, Maya felt a surge of resolve. Maybe this was her chance to shift the paradigm, not just
For herself, but for everyone she represented. I wanted to address the underlying truth of our software, she said, beginning to share her vision once more. I appreciate that, but I sense there's something deeper, he probed, his sharp eyes piercing through her facade. What's at stake for you? I can see it's more than just a project. A moment of silence passed, heavy with the weight of unspoken fears. Maya's pulse quickened, instinct urging her to offer a glimpse into her world. It's about my family, my mother. She's been scraping by, working long hours with little recognition. She deserves more. David's expression softened. I understand. Many don't realize how layered our lives can be. And yet, a suffocating anxiety gripped her. She had shared a piece of her truth, but could she trust him with the full story? It's more complicated than that, she confessed hesitantly. There are things happening behind the scenes at the company that affect families like mine. Are you referring to the transparency you mentioned, the dark underbelly? His gaze was keen, reading her fear like a carefully scripted story. Maya, if you feel threatened by what you said out there, understand that vulnerability can be a strength. I've seen it change paths for many. His words struck a chord. Vulnerability intertwined with fear, a complex dance she had long avoided. But the prospect of confronting that vulnerability ignited a burgeoning courage within her. Maybe this wasn't just about safeguarding her mother, but about carving a new truth that bent societal norms. What if she could leverage this moment, not only for herself, but for every voiceless employee who felt trapped? What would you suggest? Maya asked, her heart racing with possibilities. Let's explore this together, David replied, his demeanor shifting into a mentor-like role. What if we can impact change at a structural level? I want to help you harness that bravery. His offer hung in the air, thick with possibilities and risks. As she met his gaze, a burgeoning partnership spun before her, a chance to elevate her voice and create ripples of change. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was dread about the consequences that could unfold as a result of their collaboration. Would she be able to navigate the treacherous seas of ambition and morality without succumbing to obliteration? The challenge suddenly transformed from a mere possibility to an urgent necessity. Maya nodded, a tentative smile breaking her hesitation. A pact of sorts was forming, stitching together an alliance built on shared courage. But beneath her cautious excitement lay the question, would David's world be ready for the truth she was prepared to uncover? As they exchanged thoughts, an urgent feeling washed over her. Time was running out, and decisions had to be made swiftly. Would she walk this path with David, or withdraw to protect what little she had left? Faced with uncertainty, yet bolstered by her newfound ambition, Maya felt the stakes soaring. The crossroads reflected her reality. Her future balanced delicately between empowerment and fear. Each moment stretched out like an impending storm, pushing her to confront not only the concealed truths of her employer, but also her own identity. The chance to rewrite her story had arrived, but at what cost? Where would it lead her next? Maya felt her stomach flip. As David continued to engage her, she couldn't shake the nagging questions that undermined her confidence. How could she trust him with her vision? The weight of their newfound partnership pressed heavily on her chest, making it hard to breathe. If she dove into this collaboration, she would be entangled in a web of corporate politics and expectations that could threaten everything she held dear. Let's put a plan in place, Maya suggested, surprising herself with the boldness of her tone. The idea of structure provided her with a foundation, something she desperately needed. If we aim for a meeting with upper management to discuss our findings, maybe we can change the narrative from inside." David's face lit up with excitement, but behind that enthusiasm, she could see his awareness of the hurdles ahead. A good start, but we need to be prepared for pushback. There are always those who prefer the status quo. The urgency in his voice resonated with her. The status quo had been chipping away at the morale of those around her, including her mother. Every day she worked, her mother fought against a system that seemed indifferent to her struggles. With newfound resolve, Maya realized this was more than just a work project. This could be the launch pad for her self-advocacy. "What if we gather intel?" Maya continued, brewing a plan that felt empowered rather than reckless. "We can survey the employees anonymously to understand their concerns. Knowing their stories will give us the ammunition we need when we speak to management." David nodded, his excitement morphing into a contemplative glare. "Good idea. Humanizing the numbers will resonate. But be careful. If anyone catches wind of this, it could backfire. We need to tread lightly." Each word he spoke felt like a challenge, further igniting her determination. "I'm ready. No more being quiet. I need to do this for my mother, for our families." Stepping out of her shell was daunting, yet the prospect of advocating for others injected confidence into her weary bones. They huddled close, exchanging bold ideas, sketching out plans on the edges of discarded paper. With each passing moment, Maya let her instincts sharpen. This was her chance to reshape her narrative, to be more than just an employee. She wanted to be a catalyst for change. However, new layers of anxiety cloaked her ambition. With every powerful thought that sparked in their brainstorming session, the shadows of doubt crept back in. What if her actions led to unforeseen consequences? What if speaking up jeopardized her mother's job, or worse, her own? As they finalized their approach, Maya noticed the fine line between empowerment and recklessness. The walls of their surroundings seemed to close in on her. Whispers of unyielding company policies echoed in her mind. What if the organization chose to silence her? What if they dismissed her voice as inconsequential? "David," she blurted, her voice shaking slightly, "what if this all goes wrong?" He paused, looking directly into her soul. Change is often met with resistance, but from that resistance, strength can emerge. If you believe in this, you have to stand firm. His words struck her deeply, illuminating the conflict within. Being unwavering felt monumental, yet she pondered, was her courage enough to overcome the chasms of uncertainty that lay ahead? "What if voicing my truth leads to bigger threats?" she asked, her inner turmoil surfacing like a wave crashing against the shore. "Maya, your voice is a force. You're not the only one scared to speak out. Turn that fear into your strength," he encouraged. As the conversation unfolded, it was clear. The decision was not merely career-defining, but life-altering. A storm brewed beneath her. Each challenge she faced an opportunity to forge her identity anew. The duality of strength and doubt danced around her, a feisty push-pull that would ultimately determine her next steps. With a firm hand, she scribbled her name on the paper, signing into existence a commitment to change. That simple act ignited a surge of possibility, staving off the shadows of self-doubt. But as she looked at the paper, her heart raced. The next step loomed before her, fraught with obstacles and threats. Would she dare to push through and step into the eye of the storm? Resolutely, Maya decided she would face it all head-on. Little did she know, the challenges ahead would test every ounce of strength she claimed to own. One misstep could unravel not only her journey, but the lives of those she sought to uplift. In the quiet moments that followed, she pondered her choices and the precarious nature of what lay ahead. If she took this leap, she would cross an invisible line into a world charged with scrutiny and potential retaliation. As she braced herself for the plunge, one thought flashed across her mind. Would the pursuit of truth be her salvation or her undoing? The answer awaited her in the unfolding chapters ahead. Maya woke up the next morning with a determination that buzzed through her veins. She could still feel the ink of that paper beneath her fingers, the weight of her promise heavy in the air. But as she prepared for another day, uncertainty settled like a fog in her mind. What would her colleagues think? Would they support her or turn against her? The office hummed with its usual rhythm, but Maya felt detached, an observer in her own life. Each time she brushed past familiar faces, she could sense the underlying tension in her interactions. Smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes, nods that felt mechanical. These were the people she worked alongside, but now they seemed wrapped in their own shields.
Defenses against the harsh realities of their corporate world. David approached her at lunch, coffee in hand. "Are you ready for our meeting?" His voice was warm, a reassuring contrast to the coolness of her surroundings. "Ready as I'll ever be," Maya replied, but her voice wavered, betraying her doubt. He gestured toward a quieter corner of the break room. "Let's go over our strategy again. We need to be absolutely clear on our points." As she settled into their secluded enclave, Maya caught sight of a group whispering nearby. Instinctively, she hunched her shoulders, a reflexive act born from years of evasion. They were talking about her. She could feel it. Every laugh sent a jolt through her, amplifying her insecurities. Focusing on David seemed her only tether to reality. "I've drafted some questions for the survey," she began, spreading out her notes. "I think we should include both qualitative and quantitative measures to show the human impact behind the numbers." He scanned her notes, nodding appreciatively. "This is exactly what we need." Yet his expression grew serious. "But remember, even with solid questions, we have to tread carefully." "Yeah, right," she muttered, her voice lacking confidence. "What if upper management dismisses us outright? What if we don't even get a meeting?" "Then we adjust," David replied, his eyes steady. "We evolve. It's not just about this one meeting. This journey is about empowering others, including yourself." Maya held his gaze, and slowly the doubt began to melt away. His confidence resurrected a flicker of her own. Perhaps this was more than just a job to her. It was a mission. Her mother's battles, replayed in Maya's mind, strengthened her resolve. Taking a breath, Maya pushed the remnants of fear aside. "Okay, let's make our presentation compelling. We need to articulate exactly why this change can't wait," she said, her voice steady as she gripped her notes. Just as they were finding their rhythm, the door swung open abruptly and in walked James, an executive known for his impatience. His presence was like a damper on the vibrant air of possibility they had begun to create. "You too," he growled. "What's so special that you're huddled here? We have protocols for a reason." Maya felt her heart race, skin prickling as a swarm of nerves erupted within her. James's dismissive tone reverberated through her like a warning bell. "We were just discussing the upcoming initiatives," David replied coolly, leaning back with an ease that Maya envied. James eyed Maya critically, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Make sure you know your place. It's easy to get carried away with grand ideas." The moment felt heavy. Maya's instincts urged her to shrink back, to silence the voice inside that burned to defend herself. But as she locked eyes with David, she felt a surge of solidarity. He believed in her. If she didn't step into her truth now, when would she? "Actually, James," Maya found her voice, steady but firm, "we're not getting carried away. We're trying to honor what our colleagues are experiencing by presenting facts that could help our workplace change for the better." The words tumbled out of her, sharper than she had anticipated. A flicker of surprise crossed James's face, quickly replaced by irritation. "Do be careful where you tread, Maya. This is not a charity." In that moment, Maya understood the stakes. She was straddling a tightrope. One slip could send her tumbling into chaos. But each breath she took fortified her belief in the work they were doing. As James turned and sauntered away, Maya glanced at David, who wore a proud grin. "I can't believe I did that," she whispered, still reeling from the rush of adrenaline.
"You did more than that," he replied, his voice full of admiration. "You just found your voice." The thrill of that moment intertwined with the dread of potential repercussions. Stepping away from the break room, Maya experienced a quiet shift within. This process was more than just corporate maneuvering. It was about a personal evolution she had long waited to embrace. As they made their way back into the hustle and bustle of the office, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was brewing. If change required this much courage, what else would it demand from her? Suddenly, a notification pinged on her phone, the screen lighting up with a surprising email she hadn't expected. The time had come for upper management to review their proposal. The urgency propelled her forward, igniting a mix of excitement and dread. Maya took a deep breath. The real test was just beginning. Would she remain a voice of truth, or would she fade into the corporate shadows once more? The following morning dawned gray and humid, an oppressive atmosphere swirling around Maya as she sat in her usual cubicle. The proposal email still loomed in her mind, its weight like a stone lodged in her chest. Today was the day they would present their findings, defend their ideas. So why did she feel like she was about to walk into the lion's den? Maya's fingers trembled as she scrolled through her notes, each bullet point meticulously crafted to outline the human consequences of neglect in the workplace. Yet, what if those metrics seemed insignificant to the higher-ups? Her heart sank at the thought. Unable to focus, she glanced at David, who was deep in discussion with a fellow employee. His enthusiasm bolstered her. "It's just a meeting," she mumbled to herself, but the soothing cadence did little to settle her nerves. This wasn't just a meeting. It was an invitation to challenge the complacency that had shrouded her workplace for far too long. Yet the very notion of conflicting with the corporate machinery sent a wave of doubt crashing over her again. "Ready for your first public speaking debut?" a voice chimed, startling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Sarah, another colleague she respected, though their friendship was merely superficial.
Maya offered a weak smile, glancing down at her notes. "More like a public execution," Maya replied, the quip only half joking. "I know it feels daunting, but trust yourself," Sarah encouraged, her eyes glimmering with sincerity. "You've put so much work into this. Let that show." "I hope so," Maya murmured, contemplating whether her enthusiasm was strong enough to pierce through the facade of indifference she often encountered. The pressure mounted within her, balancing precariously between doubt and resolve. When Maya finally entered the conference room, she was greeted by the stony gazes of executives and the oppressive buzz of overhead lights. There was James seated prominently at the end of the long table, his expression betraying the skepticism that made her voice shake. "Let's get started, shall we?" he said, a condescending smirk creeping across his face. Maya exchanged a glance with David, who offered his unwavering support with barely perceptible nods. She watched as he transitioned to introduction, leaving room for her to breathe. With self-reassurance, she took a deep breath and stepped forward, projecting her voice with a newfound clarity. "Thank you for this opportunity to discuss a crucial initiative." She felt the eyes of her colleagues and the executives burn into her, but used that gaze as fuel rather than an impenetrable barrier. As she outlined the human aspects of their proposal, Maya saw subtle shifts in the room's dynamics. Some executives leaned in, the curve of their lips hinting at interest. Her adrenaline surged with every statistic and anecdote she presented, each word fortifying her belief in their mission. She glanced at James, who had lapsed into a frown, dissatisfaction painted across his features. Unable to resist, Maya forged ahead, her passion driving her to elaborate on the need for change in how management engaged with employees. "Not only are we presenting a set of numbers, but we're voicing real experiences. Ignoring them means risking the very foundation of our workplace morality," she asserted, her resolve hardening. Yet, just as she felt she was gaining momentum, James interjected, his voice ice cold. "You're focusing on emotions and not the bottom line, Maya. Corporations run on profit, not sentimentality.
Maya's heart raced, and 1,000 rebuttals flashed in her mind, but she steadied herself. This wasn't just about winning an argument, it was about advocating for a paradigm shift. Profit is derived from a motivated workforce, one that feels valued instead of invisible. This is not just an emotional appeal, it is a strategic necessity. The room fell silent for a moment, and she could feel the weight of her words beginning to land. Doubt began to flicker in James's eyes, and for the first time she sensed more than his intelligent disdain. As the meeting progressed, small victories piled up around her. She watched as clearer paths laid themselves out, and she was surprised by the emerging alliances, whispers of support echoing in the corners of the room. The confidence she had borrowed from David began to intertwine with her own as stubbornness brewed inside her. When it concluded, Maya collapsed back into her chair, breathless yet exhilarated. David beamed at her, silently communicating pride that made her chest swell. "What did I tell you? You nailed it!" The relief was tempered by the weight of reality, however. She knew one confrontation wouldn't break their systemic issues. The victories today were only the beginning, not the resolution she craved. As Maya sat in the afterglow of success, the tension of what lay ahead loomed larger. Just as she tasted the thrill of progress, Maya received a notification, a message from James demanding a follow-up meeting to discuss her remarks further. The dance had only just begun, and she felt the challenge lingering in the air like an electric current. She was ready to confront her past, both personally and professionally. Would she continue to rise or succumb again to the shadows she had fought so hard to escape? The sun set behind a thick veil of clouds as Maya stared at her computer screen, the glow illuminating the doubt that clouded her mind. James's email felt like a weight chained to her thoughts, a constant reminder that her initial success was now vulnerable. Why had one interaction spiraled her into this self-analysis? She took a breath, pushing aside the remnants of earlier triumph. Today's meeting hadn't just been a presentation, it was a psychological battlefield, and she had emerged mostly unscathed. Yet the shadows of last year's reservations still loomed, whispering fear of rejection in her ears. How could she refuse a chance to further her cause? She could sense the change inching closer. But first she would have to learn to dance more elegantly within this intricate corporate rhythm. With determination, she opened James's email again, preparing for the meeting slated in 2 days. She needed to be more than prepared. She had to become the embodiment of her proposal. Absorbing everything she could about corporate dynamics and successful negotiations, Maya pored over articles and past meeting notes, searching for insights that could disarm James's skepticism. Each article added to her growing repository of knowledge, but also bundled anxieties and aspirations into a singular, heavy mass. As she wrestled with her thoughts, the quiet tick of time began to ignite a plan. This wasn't merely a meeting. It would be her stage to embody every ounce of her vision. She would need to arm herself with both persuasive tactics and emotional intelligence, the combination that inspired loyalty and respect. A strategy began forming in her mind, one built upon weaving their objectives into the tapestry of her human-centric approach. She flipped through a presentation template, refreshing her visuals, thinking of ways to intertwine sight and sound. Vulnerability, she realized, could be a strength. She must allow spaces for her true self to emerge as she narrated her vision. Emotions might be dismissed by the likes of James, but they were universal and could provoke genuine introspection. "Show them why this matters," she whispered to her reflection in the monitor, barely recognizing her own steely eyes. The act of verbalizing her intent blossomed hope and fueled her determination. That night, she retreated into the sanctuary of her living room with dedicated resolve. She blogged about workplace values, making raw connections with her experiences. Each word typed became cathartic, a subconscious affirming chant reminding her why she was fighting.
The weight of inaction began to feel heavier than the fear of failure. The day of the follow-up meeting arrived, and with it, a tempest of nerves that threatened to toss her confidence. Standing before her colleagues felt daunting, yet the groundwork she laid at home had transformed her stage fright into palpable passion. With each step toward the meeting room, her heart raced, not from apprehension, but from anticipation. Focus on the mission, she reminded herself, sliding into the chair across from James. This time, she would wield the blade of her experiences and hope with clarity. As the meeting commenced, James immediately took the reins, steering conversation territory with his usual pragmatism. But today, Maya was undeterred, ready to reposition the discussion around the unseen costs of rigid policies, the very metrics James often overlooked. "I appreciate your concerns about the bottom line," she started confidently, "but the clarity of our human element is indispensable to sustainable growth. Would you risk losing half your workforce over mere dollar signs?" For a fleeting moment, James frowned, caught off guard. It was an opportunity she had to seize. Disappointment flickered in his eyes as Maya pressed forth, articulating not just rationale, but heartfelt anecdotes from employees whose potential remained tethered. The tide of the conversation turned, and she felt a simmer of hope, a softening of defenses, as even a couple of colleagues nodded in agreement. With every detail shared, she noted how faces around the room shifted. Her emotion echoed deeper than just numbers thrown into a chart. Could this be her turning point? As the discussion ebbed and flowed, Maya realized it was no longer about merely securing approval. It was about creating a culture of empathy in what had long felt like a battleground. She saw glimpses of realization, tentative enthusiasm forming. Then the meeting ended abruptly, and the silence hung like an unspoken challenge. She felt breathless, in a good way, as she left the room. The real battle was yet to come, and deep in her consciousness loomed a single persistent inquiry. Had she made any real progress? Walking back, she spotted David near the coffee machine, arms crossed, but an expression of hopeful pride on his face. "Good job today," he said, his voice carrying an undercurrent of belief that electrified her spirit. "Thanks," she replied, unsure where to place her faith. Did her advocacy take root? Would she have to confront further opposition before her vision could blossom? Just as she thought her pulse had steadied, her phone vibrated again. Another unexpected message from James, requesting a personal discussion about her proposal. Maya swallowed hard, knowing this wouldn't simply be a friendly chat. The real confrontation had just begun, and she had to steel herself for whatever James would throw at her next. But this time, she felt prepared to lunge back. The request for a personal discussion loomed in Maya's mind like a storm cloud threatening rain. She clenched her phone tightly, letting the vibrant notifications blur into white noise. The buoyant moment with David was snuffed out, overshadowed by the gravity of the upcoming encounter with James. She stood in her kitchen, the scent of coffee permeating the air, yet it did little to stir her energy. Instead, it only stirred her apprehension. The clock continued its ruthless march, and with every tick, she felt the weight of uncertainty build. Would James provoke her with harsh critiques? Would he dismiss her ideas entirely? Or could this meeting be a genuine opportunity for dialogue? Intent on preparing herself mentally, Maya decided to approach this conversation as if she were entering the meeting room again, only this time with a tighter focus on her core message. She opened a fresh document on her laptop, titled Meeting with James. The stark white page mirrored her mind, both blank and brimming with possibilities. As Maya wrote, she distilled down her proposal's essence, pinpointing the key arguments she wanted to reiterate. Each note was a battle strategy, a mechanism to transform apprehension into an artful representation of her comprehension. "What does your heart say?" she scribbled, reminding herself that the power of her vision could resonate through authenticity. She paced through her apartment, rehearsing aloud the impactful anecdotes she planned to share.
What does it truly mean to invest in a workforce, she asked herself, anticipating the skeptical glances from James. It's not just about metrics, it's about igniting passion, fueling innovation. As the words flowed, a mixture of excitement and determination took root within her. Finally, the time arrived, and she headed toward the conference room, mind racing. As she entered, the atmosphere was thick with tension, and the unease in her stomach flared anew. There was James, sitting behind a polished mahogany desk, his expression inscrutable. The sharp suit contrasted against the softer hues of the environment, a reflection of the opposing philosophies they represented. "Maya," he greeted, his tone layered with authority, yet tinged with curiosity. "Thanks for coming." "Thank you for having me," she replied, steadier than she felt. Taking a seat across from him, she felt the weight of countless expectations resting squarely upon her shoulders. James wasted no time. "I appreciated your perspective in the meeting, but I need to understand what makes you believe your approach is viable." With her heart pounding, she recognized this wasn't merely a challenge. It was her moment to engage fully. Every strategic thought crystallized in her mind, propelling her to lean in and allow her passion to guide her. Because we can't afford to overlook our most essential asset, our people.
Breathe life into our success. James's brow furrowed, and she examined his body language, watching for cracks in his armor. "But we still need results," he countered, unyielding. "Results come when people are inspired. They'll go the extra mile because they believe in the mission. Do you think a rigid policy will inspire teams to innovate?" She pressed, her voice steadying. James leaned back, crossing his arms. The silence that followed thickened with potential, and Maya could sense the shift in the dynamic. The storm clouds of tension seemed less ominous now, as conviction coursed through her. This was more than just professional discourse. It felt like the first moments of a significant transformation, both for her and perhaps for James too. She could almost see the gears turning in his mind, unraveling his preconceived notions, a glimpse of vulnerability peeking through the facade. "You make a compelling case," he admitted finally, a note of authenticity creeping into his voice. Hope flickered within Maya's chest, and she pressed forward while the momentum was in her favor. "If we want to retain talent, we have to adopt policies that speak to their needs. What if I could facilitate sessions where we gather insights directly from our teams?" A contemplative look crossed James's face. The meeting wasn't just wearing on, it felt like a turning point for both of them. As questions and dialogue continued to flow, an unexpected realization materialized within Maya. The fear she had clung to, all the doubts and anxieties, were being replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. She wasn't just trying to convince James, she was forging connections, demonstrating the humane side of business. But just as the conversation began to reach an encouraging crescendo, James's phone buzzed dismissively, the incoming call abruptly pulling him from their moment. He glanced at the screen, tension returning with the volume of his business. "Excuse me," he muttered. Maya's heart sank for a moment, feeling the wave of uncertainty crash upon her anew. What awaited her after this call? Would he brush aside their progress, returning to cold pragmatism? Only time would tell if she could cement this fragile alliance. But deep inside, she recognized that she was not alone in this battle anymore. She had stood her ground, and now it was time to see whether James would join her in challenging the old norms. In that brief pause, amidst the corporate chaos surrounding them, Maya contemplated her own heart's desires. She was ready to continue pushing forward, but as she gripped the edge of the table, she knew the next conversation would be crucial in determining the landscape of their business and her future. Will he embrace the vision, or will he retreat back into indifference, she pondered, curiosity etching uncertainty in her core. As James returned his attention to her, she felt the tension ricochet in the air once more, her heart racing, firmly pregnant with the promise of the unknown ahead. Maya watched as James reconnected with the conversation, his expression momentarily masked by the urgency of his interrupted call. The confident demeanor she had battled with moments before seemed to waver, and she seized the moment to dig deeper into her burgeoning conviction. "James," she began tentatively but firmly, "what if, instead of seeing results as numbers on a spreadsheet, we view them as reflections of our team's strength and passion? Imagine a workplace where every individual feels valued, goals being met not through pressure but through enthusiasm." He set his phone aside, a glint of contemplation sparking in his eyes. "You paint a compelling picture, Maya," he replied after a moment, his tone softer than before. "But what does this practically look like? How do we shift from theory to action? This isn't just about idealism." Maya felt the rush of adrenaline. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a collaborative inquiry. "We can start with proposed workshops, gathering insights from our teams to address their concerns, creating a feedback loop that reflects genuine engagement. It will signal that we are committed to their needs and aspirations." Her heart raced as the words flowed. Could this be the catalyst for real change? Yes, she could feel it. A shift from mere survival in the corporate ecosystem to thriving through understanding and unity. James leaned forward, his brow furrowing again, but this time it signified concentration rather than skepticism. "And how will you ensure that these sessions yield useful outcomes?" Maya briefly hesitated. The urge to convince him with grand ideas tugged at her, but she grounded herself. This was about authenticity. By implementing a structured follow-up system where results of these workshops are documented, analyzed, and shared with the entire team. It's about transparency. If they see their feedback influencing decisions, they're more likely to engage wholeheartedly. Intrigued, James tapped his fingers on the desk, a familiar gesture, she noted, borrowing time, conjuring possibilities. This was both exhilarating and daunting. She needed to form a bridge between his skepticism and her idealism. "However, we'll need to ensure leadership participates in these initiatives," she added, confidence strengthening her voice. "Leaders must model the behavior we want to instill. It offers a powerful example of commitment towards change." James smiled faintly, perhaps the first glimpse of a burgeoning alliance, but she remained aware that the winds could change. "Maya, these are lofty suggestions. How do you propose to deal with leadership pushback? Not everyone will embrace this shift easily." The question struck chords of worry deep within her. Maya had encountered resistance before, but never on this scale. How much could she withstand before her enthusiasm wavered? Yet the fire inside pushed her. There had been times she had confronted Herculean obstacles, and she refused to falter now. "I propose developing a pilot program. We can select a team willing to engage, showcasing the immediate benefits. When they see the difference in engagement rates and productivity, it'll speak for itself," she answered, a fierce determination lining her words. James nodded slightly, impressed. "Perhaps," and it ignited a flicker of hope in Maya's chest. "It seems you've thought this through," he conceded, leaning back in his chair. But uncertainty lingered. Was it enough to sway him? Would he commit to the effort? "Before we can move forward, I'll need to discuss this with the other executives. A single voice isn't enough," he stated, bringing her back to ground zero, the inevitable upheaval of consensus realization. Maya drew in a breath, the enormity of the next step suffocating yet invigorating. The battle had transformed her from merely a participant to a pioneer of change. She glanced at him, weighing her response carefully. "Then I'll prepare an engaging presentation to share with you. We must ensure everyone feels invested in this vision." James's demeanor shifted, respect entering his gaze. "You're not the same Maya I met months ago. Your growth is palpable. But remember, you won't just have to present ideas. You'll need to advocate for them unapologetically, especially in the face of opposition." His recognition of her evolution sent a rush of excitement through her, but it also coiled a new pressure around her heart. What if her advocacy would meet fierce dissent? Was she ready for that potential fallout? "Let this be the beginning, James.
"I'm committed to this vision, to igniting passion through innovation," she asserted, determination coursing through her veins. Yet beneath her conviction lay swelling doubt. What if she could not carry this vision through the turbulence it required? As James mulled over her words, the buzzing phone lurking in the background seemed symbolically distant now, the artillery of corporate existence falling to the wayside, at least for this fleeting moment. But as she contemplated the tumultuous road ahead and the weight of James's next moves, a question loomed large. Could she really challenge the status quo, or would her vision dissipate like mist in the morning sun? The coming days would demand unwavering resolve, and, before she slipped away, she resolved she would prepare for the fight of not just her ideas, but also for herself, a fight for authenticity amidst the machinations of the corporate world. Was she bold enough to confront the hidden biases of those around her? The stakes had never been higher, and the path ahead wound into shadows, pregnant with uncertainty. Would Maya have the courage to traverse it all, fueled by an idea that could very well reshape everything she believed in? Maya sat at her desk, the familiar hum of the office around her, yet today it felt electrified with possibility. The pivotal meeting with James had catapulted her into new territory, a realm bursting with potential, where she could finally challenge the established norms. With each tick of the clock, she reminded herself of her own development. Gone were the days when she had felt overwhelmed by doubt, overshadowed by her background. Today, she was a voice, clear, resolute, and unwavering. The email correspondence with James had taken an unexpected turn. He had acknowledged her proposal's merit, and
even invited her to present it at the next executive meeting. His words resonated in her mind. Your growth is palpable. That recognition, for Maya, was a climactic affirmation, cementing the transformation she had forged. At lunch, she sat with David, who had been unwavering in his support throughout this journey. "You're moving up the ranks, Maya. It's incredible to see," he said, pride radiating from his expression. She felt a warm flush of accomplishment wash over her, accentuating the distance she had traveled from the timid girl behind the screens of her mother's employer's house. "I might be moving up," she said, looking him straight in the eye, "but this is just the beginning. I want to influence real change. I want this program not only to succeed, but to resonate with those who've been voiceless for too long." David nodded, the serious nature of her words sinking in. "You're ready for this. Remember, empower those around you, just like you've empowered yourself." Their conversation fueled her determination, casting a focused light on the task ahead. Hours later, as she prepared her presentation, Maya meticulously crafted her narrative, one that wove the human experience into the stark realities of corporate objectives. She infused heart into numbers and passion into facts, determined to captivate the executive board not just with the strength of her argument, but also with the authenticity of her experiences. When the day of the presentation finally arrived, Maya stepped into the executive suite with confidence radiating from her core. The polished boardroom, with its sleek furniture and austere atmosphere, no longer intimidated her. Each executive seated before her, including James, bore witness to her metamorphosis. "Thank you all for your time today," she opened, her voice clear and assertive. "My goal is to present a vision that transforms how we perceive our workforce and, in turn, how we drive economic success." As she spoke, the room came alive with her passion. She illustrated the importance of a value-driven workplace with case studies, anecdotes, and data-driven insights. Watching James's expression soften slightly told her she was making headway. But the true challenge lay ahead. Would they embrace this new paradigm, or would they cling to outdated models resistant to change? She presented compelling evidence from employee surveys that highlighted disengagement and its direct correlation with turnover rates. She framed her proposal as not just beneficial, but necessary, arguing that investing in employees led directly to enhanced productivity and profitability.
When the presentation reached its conclusion, a palpable silence enveloped the room. Maya waited, her heart thrumming with anticipation. After a few moments, James cleared his throat. "Maya, you've effectively articulated your points." His expression was solemn yet contemplative. "What do you suggest we do next?" At that moment, Maya understood she was no longer in the shadows of doubt and inaction. She had become a force to be reckoned with. "We need to create a pilot program that demonstrates our commitment to employee engagement. I suggest we start
with a select team that's open to transformation. We'll collect actionable feedback to refine our approach." The executives murmured among themselves, a flurry of discussion signaling a shifting perspective. Encouraged, Maya continued, "More than that, we must foster an environment where every individual feels their contributions matter. It's about building relationships rooted in respect rather than hierarchy." As discussions unfolded, she watched as skepticism faded and curiosity blossomed. The trajectory of her career was shifting, but more importantly, the company culture was on the verge of a renaissance. Days turned into weeks, and as she collaborated across departments to implement her pilot program, Maya solidified her standing within the organization. The initial team reaped rewards of involvement, revealing a growing enthusiasm towards their work, a testament to the value she had long envisioned. When she received the official recognition, a promotion, she inwardly celebrated not merely for herself, but for those she represented. No longer categorized solely as the maid's daughter, she had established herself as an influential figure within the corporate landscape, shaping policy and revitalizing morale. Emotional pride swelled in her chest as the weight of her journey resonated deeply. A letter from the team she had spearheaded expressed their gratitude, noting how her efforts brought clarity and motivation into their roles. In that moment, she felt new clarity dawn upon her. She was not merely working for herself, she was enabling others to embrace their potential. Reflecting on her evolution thus far, Maya stood at that intersection of triumph and purpose, realizing that her journey was not only about personal success, but about igniting a broader vision of inclusivity and empowerment within the workplace. "Maya, let's get lunch," David offered, breaking her reverie. She smiled, knowing this wasn't just a meal, it was a celebration of every small victory, every struggle, and every step forward. As they walked toward the elevator, she looked back at the conference room where the seeds of her purpose had taken root. She knew the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but every doubt had transformed into a resilient voice reverberating through the corridors of the corporate world. She was ready to defend her vision and amplify the voices that had long been muted. This was just the beginning of her adventure. Maya had finally claimed not just her place in this world, but had constructed a narrative that would inspire others to rise and shine alongside her. Time to continue forging paths, a journey fueled by commitment, courage, and the relentless pursuit of change, which would light the way for future generations. And with that vision firmly in grasp, she stepped confidently into the future she had started to build, one where truth, empowerment, and dignity would shape the landscape of her world. You need to subscribe now to witness the evolution of powerful stories such as Maya's, pushing boundaries and igniting change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these transformative tales thriving. Comment below with your reactions. Share your theories about her journey. Did she reach her ultimate potential? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this empowering conclusion. Together, let's reshape the narrative.